Good morning, everybody. Good Tuesday morning to you all. Thanks for joining us today. This is our Geeks Cyber webinar. So it's actually the first webinar that Geeks have done. So we're all very excited to be here with you today and see so many people out there tuning in. So appreciate your time. So I'm Mark. I'm the account manager here at Geeks. So you would have hopefully recognized me from a few of the early Geeks Cyber Discovery calls. If you haven't booked on already, then please do so with me through my Calendly link, which I'll put on an email to you all after this. Then today we've also got Rob Ewins. He's our technical director here at Geeks. He'll be doing a talk on all things Cyber Essential. So the whole premise of today is Cyber Essentials as a service from us here at Computer Geeks. Nick Richards, who you know as our MD, he'll be doing a Q&A at the end of this talk. And then we've got some very special guests today. So we've got Ryan and Adam, both from CyberSmart. So CyberSmart are the company we partner with to bring you Cyber Essentials as a service. So very excited to have them on board today. And in particular, Adam with his cybersecurity background in the police force. So there's going to be hopefully some interesting tales to listen to and find out more about all things Cyber Essentials. So the agenda for today, without any further ado, is we're going to have a real life example from our technical director, Rob, of a cyber attack. Then we're going to introduce you properly to Ryan and Adam from CyberSmart, and there also highlight some particular examples and real world applications in the cybersecurity field. Then we go back to Rob. That's where you're going to learn more about our solution for Cyber Essentials as a service and the two different levels to it. Then at the end, we've got Nick, who will be jumping in on our interactive Q&A session. So throughout the talk today, if you've got any questions, please do chat and put them in the chat. And we'll hopefully answer them all at the end. This is also being recorded as well. So any people that couldn't attend today, they get a recording of this. And look forward to introducing hopefully Rob now. So many thanks.
Hi there, Mark. Thanks a lot, much appreciated. And thanks everyone for joining today. Appreciate you taking the time and really excited to be launching our Geeks Cyber solutions. So I'd like to start with a story, if that's all right. And like all good stories, this one's based on real events and is very scary. So last year, we worked with a company who suffered a serious cyber attack. It wasn't a large multinational, but a UK SME of around 40 staff. Upon our investigation, we identified that their servers and files had been fully encrypted with advanced ransomware. There was, of course, a ransom note and an ominous dark web link demanding payment to regain access to their critical files and systems. Much like your businesses, this company was heavily reliant on IT. So the majority of systems were down or had to be taken down, and key functions such as their ability to take and process orders had completely ground to a halt. I think it's worth stopping and thinking for a moment. What would you do if a similar event would hit your business? How disruptive would it be? What would it cost? Would it damage your reputation? Do you have a breach plan? Thankfully, this story has a hero. I won't blow our own trumpet too much, saying it was Computer Geeks, but it was certainly a robust backup strategy. And after physically collecting the server in question, working through the night, we were able to complete a restore of known good backups, whilst also identifying and remediating the mechanism of compromise. Now, that used to be where the story ends with ransomware. Unfortunately, these days, there's a twist. Ransomware gangs are now using what's called double extortion tactics. So not only are they after payment for decryption of your data, they threaten to publicize the breach and make the data openly available on the dark web to the highest bidder. And this particular story took a sinister turn when a company director was called and threatened with exactly this on their personal mobile, and it was necessary to get the police involved. There's still something of a happy ending. Systems were fully restored, system vulnerabilities were fixed, and this particular company is now fully Cyber Essentials certified. I don't think the importance of Cyber Essentials as a standard can be overstated in the context of this story. Had those controls been in place and followed, then the particular breach wouldn't have happened. So just to review a couple of additional points with yourselves, hopefully I haven't scared you too much. Cybercrime is a very real threat. As seen in that story there. And attacks are becoming far more frequent and sophisticated. SMEs are a huge target. It's not just the big conglomerates, multinationals out there. SMEs are being targeted as well. And it's the data that you hold and the data that you hold on behalf of others that's extremely valuable to these attackers, not just the money that they can get through, saying if you pay us X amount of Bitcoin, we'll give you your data back. They want the data itself, and one of the reasons for that is because they know how valuable it is to you and your customers. And just a further point, the Information Commissioner's Office advises that ransom payment is not an adequate measure to restore personal data. So it's not good enough to have some money aside and say, oh, if that worst comes to the worst, then we'll pay the ransom and it's all said and done, or our insurance will pay out. That isn't adequate under our legislation as a means of dealing with ransomware. So that's sort of a run through of that story, but as a next step, I'd like to pass you on to our friends at CyberSmart. So we've got Ryan and Adam here today, and we partner with CyberSmart in delivering our Geeks CE Secure solution. They're here to share some additional insight on the importance of cybersecurity and some more real-world scenarios. So yeah, thanks a lot.
Brilliant. Thanks very much for the introduction. It's great to be here. Obviously, we've partnered with CyberSmart and Computer Geeks. It's always a fantastic kind of opportunity to speak directly to their clients, their customers, just to identify what's going on in the industry, how everything's working, what's not working, what you can do better, and having the likes of Computer Geeks there to support that journey makes it a lot easier for yourself to get certified, stay protected, and then build a strategy around what you need to do to prevent future attacks and just keep everything safe and secure. So as mentioned, I'm the CyberSmart Channel Account Manager for Computer Geeks. I look after the relationship from CyberSmart to Computer Geeks. I make sure that everything at CyberSmart works for them, and then everyone's happy going forward to make sure that you're getting the best services possible. If I go over to a bit more kind of information about who CyberSmart are, just go over a bit more further information so you get a bit of understanding of who we are exactly. So CyberSmart are pretty much, I wouldn't say fairly new to the industry, but we're still quite in that kind of landscape of we're building to build better success and make everything as streamlined as possible when it comes to the service tied around it. So we were launched in 2017 at the GCHQ Cyber Accelerator. So pretty much this is where everyone goes to launch their new ideas and new strategies and build a service around what the industry looks like. So this is where we were launched and very well taken on to build where we are now. As you can see here, we're widely adopted from government to SME, but obviously it doesn't stop there. There's a lot of sectors out there that need this service. So we're making sure that we can then provide those services aligned around it. And again, tying it in nicely to the other services that Computer Geeks can support with. It just means that you're getting that kind of 360 approach to how you can secure and better look after your own environment. We are the largest certified body in the UK. So when it comes to marking the Cyber Essentials, Cyber Essentials Plus, we are the top government body, certified body out there that will help support the marking of the assessments. We've got over, well, we say 4,000 plus customers, but as you can imagine, as ever growing, I'd say this has scaled quite considerably since the stats have been put onto the slide. So again, we can maybe look even higher than that. Again, obviously, we want to make sure that everyone's benefiting from those services that help them help their companies as well. Independently tested at the NCSC Proving Grounds. So again, another great sector to be part of. We make sure that we adhere to every kind of policy, procedure, and guideline that's out there in the industry to make sure that every data is secure right from the word go. ISO 2701 certified. Obviously, that's a great kind of assessment to go through. It's another ballpark compared to Cyber Essentials and Cyber Essentials Plus, but you've mostly heard the standard out there, so it might be something you might build towards, and having the platform of Cyber Essentials Plus just builds you nicely into that kind of structure that you might need to get to that kind of level. We're approved G-Cloud supplier, again, another necessity in the kind of industry to make sure that we can maintain every kind of compliance regulation out there. And we're currently pushing towards Series C funding. So we're heavily backed when it comes to Series C, Series B. So we're making sure that we can now push towards that standard. Obviously, again, going back to what we're doing today, we're obviously making sure that we can identify what the industry looks like, how to stay safe, how to stay secure, what the assessment looks like, and making sure that we can provide that excellent service from start to finish by collaborating together. With that, I'd like to hand over to my colleague Adam, who is a cyber security consultant as well as an auditor, as well as ex-police at CyberSmart, and he'll take you through a bit more of the kind of nuts and bolts, the industry, the case studies, and just giving you a better kind of real world scenario of what you could do to prevent yourself. So Adam, over to you.
Thank you, Ryan. Thank you. So yeah, the first thing I just want to do is just introduce myself. As Ryan's touched on and Mark has touched on, my background is in law enforcement. I was in the police for 15 years, and my last role was leading the cybercrime team. So today I'm going to explain to you, in fact, what I've seen and the why of cybersecurity. But the first thing I want to touch on is asking the question: so what do Greggs, Tesco's, McDonald's, and Sainsbury's, and as of a couple of days ago, Nationwide Building Society, all have in common? Well, the answer is one thing. This month, they've all lost money because their technology has failed and they had no contingency plan. Now, let me be really clear. This was a technical issue. However, it should act as a reminder to us all in our personal lives and within our business lives of the dependence we all place upon technology. And we know the dependency on technology is increasing day by day. And recognizing this has to be the first step in understanding the importance of securing our technology. We should all now be utilizing strong passwords and MFA. And I'd like to think that everyone on this call not only understands that, but is doing that. That should be in place now. But businesses, though, must take this a step further and ensure that they're implementing and maintaining procedures that enable them and their people to protect their technology. Business continuity planning and testing of it are a must. Now, as I mentioned before, these incidents are not a cyber attack, but the implications of a ransomware attack, like we mentioned earlier, could have similar consequences to our daily operations. And it's something that every business should be preparing for to ensure that they can effectively manage the situation if it were to happen, and most importantly, recover from it. Now, I want to touch on why cybersecurity is important. And as we've already discussed, our day-to-day lives are now hugely dependent upon tech. The devices and apps we use are almost like a second brain to us. And when I was a detective investigating serious crime, I'd often look to or review the suspect's devices and the data held upon them. Now, their Google search history was almost like reading their minds. Every question they had or matter that interested them, Google gave them the answer. And it's no different for us. And if we think about the information that we put into Google, into our phones, all the information that our devices receive from us, it's not always going to be information that we want to share. Now, imagine if someone with malicious intent got hold of this information. What would the consequences be in your work and home life? And this doesn't always have to be criminal in nature. It could be simply the fact that you're looking for a new job, or you send a message to your friend being not complimentary about your boss or your colleagues. That sort of information is not what you want to be leaked or be public. But let's turn that slightly. Let's focus on our business lives to understand the importance of cybersecurity to businesses. Now, all businesses require technology to function. Look at Greggs, Tesco and Co. They've showed us that. Now, I'm going to break this down a little bit further into two distinct areas. First of all, protection, and then we'll look at value of cybersecurity. So let's start with cybersecurity and why it's vital to protect our businesses. Now, there are four main areas that I'm going to cover, and the first is data protection. And this can be broken down further into what we're protecting and why we're protecting our businesses. Now, these threats are data breaches, And this is where information is stolen and can lead to lawsuits, regulatory fines, and reputational damage. Also, data loss. This could be accidental deletion or a malicious act, and could cause significant disruption to operations and impact future business plans. But also privacy violations, and this is where personal information is exposed, leading to a loss of trust and potential regulatory infringements. Now, the second area going to look at under the guise of protection is financial. Now, again, this could be broken down into what we're protecting our business from, and these threats are a direct financial loss. So money stolen from our accounts or being extorted through ransom demands. Disruption of operations. And again, look at the example of Greggs Tesco's. They weren't able to receive payments, so their business effectively stopped unless people had cash on them. And increased insurance costs, the icing on the cake. So just like our home or our car insurance, organizations that experience cyber attacks will face higher insurance premiums due to the increased risk they present. The next is reputation. Now, I don't need to say too much here, other than loss of customer trust, negative media coverage, erosion of confidence, all impacting your business image and how you are perceived. Now, I'm going to ask a question now. So get the chat box open and get ready to type. If I was to say, what organization do you associate with WannaCry? And WannaCry was a famous ransomware attack from 7 years ago. Who do you think of? And I'll give you a couple of seconds to put the answers in the chat. So I'm seeing some of the answers coming in now, and that's exactly what I was expecting you to say. So most people would say the NHS, but WannaCry affected 200,000 computers in more than 150 countries. There were hundreds of victims, and it included the likes of FedEx, Honda, Nissan, all huge names that we probably all recognise, but only one is stuck in our mind. And it's the same for me. I know this information, but WannaCry for me is NHS. And we don't want our businesses to be associated with the inability to protect our customers. But we don't want to be seen by our partners as the weak link in the supply chain. And that is why cybersecurity is so important for our reputation. But the final area I want to cover off under protection is compliance. Now, although compliance can be seen as a tick box exercise, I understand that, it does serve to protect us too. And things like regulatory fines. Now, failing to comply with data privacy regulations, as mentioned a moment ago, like GDPR, can lead to quite significant fines. Legal challenges, customers or partners whose data has been compromised during a cyber attack could take us to court. And finally, the loss of licensing or certifications. A cyber attack can lead to a suspension or revocation of licenses or certifications. And if security protocols aren't followed, that is when it's going to put us in trouble. And I'm now going to move on to the value. So let's look at the value of cybersecurity and what that can bring to your business. And first up is business continuity. Reduced downtime. This is a big one for me. Effective cybersecurity prevents disruptions, ensuring smooth business operations. And I keep referring back to it because it's such a good and recent example. Look at Greggs. Faster recovery, robust instant response plans and backups minimize downtimes in case of attack, allows our businesses to recover quickly and minimize the impact of the actual attack itself. And enhanced resilience. So strong cybersecurity practices help us to build resilience against ever-evolving threats, making us better prepared to handle future attacks. And next up, and this is one of the best levers that we have to get the attention of senior leaders and decision makers within organizations, and that is competitive edge. Cybersecurity can give us reduced operational costs. So proactive cybersecurity strategies will minimize the expenses associated with cyber attacks, such as data recovery files and, as we discussed, reputational repair. Improved customer trust. By demonstrating a commitment to cybersecurity, this is going to foster trust within our customers, allowing our businesses to differentiate themselves from competitors. And finally, a competitive advantage, and this is a big one. businesses with a demonstrably stronger cybersecurity posture can leverage this as a selling point in itself. And over recent months, we've seen increased attention put onto the supply chain. Supply chain attacks are rising. And in October last year, the government, the UK government, highlighted the ever-increasing risk. And they've stated that within all contracts with government bodies, cybersecurity must be addressed. So this now means that all work with government bodies requires evidence of cybersecurity controls in place, and this has to be documented in the contracts that you have with those bodies. And this is ongoing cybersecurity. And the government actually points to Cyber Essentials as a way of achieving this. And the final point I'd like to make under value is enabling the use of technology. So by having strong cybersecurity posture, we can communicate securely, enabling a more digital and connected business environment with partners and our customers. But we can also empower innovation. A secure environment fosters innovation by allowing businesses to confidently experiment with new technology and data-driven initiatives. Now, if we think about AI and how this is and is going to change not only our personal lives, but the way we work. And just think right now about your business and AI. Is your business using AI? Are individuals within the business using AI? And if that is the case, does your business have an AI policy to ensure everyone knows how to use it correctly and safely? I've seen and I've heard lots of businesses that are using AI and they have no policy in place. So in effect, people are putting information that they shouldn't be sharing up into the brain of AI, whether that be ChatGPT, Gemini, or others. That information goes into the brain and at some point will be regurgitated to someone else. So we need to be aware of what information we're sharing. Okay, so we've spoken about the value of cybersecurity, but we haven't yet looked at the actual threats. So over the next few slides, I'm going to look at the greatest threat to us all, and then talk you through a case that I actually investigated and that used the threat that I'm going to be speaking about. So the greatest threat to us all is, drum roll, social engineering. Now, statistics show us that 98% of attacks involve social engineering. And social engineers themselves leverage key principles to successfully achieve their aims. And these principles include authority. Now, this relies on the fact that most people will take instruction from someone who appears to be in charge. Intimidation, scaring or bullying an individual. Consensus, people will often want to do what others are doing. Scarcity, making something appear more desirable because it may be the last one. Familiarity, so the recipient likes the individual or organisation, the social engineer that's claiming to be from. We've all received emails where it appears to be from someone else, whether that be Amazon or something else, because we use them, because we like the service they provide us, it instantly buys us that familiarity, that little bit of trust. And moving on to trust, social engineers will build a relationship with the target in order to gain trust. And the one that we're probably most commonly seeing and all aware of is urgency, creating the feeling that action must be taken immediately. But social engineering comes in many forms, and the most effective and widely known is phishing, with 79% of businesses reporting they've received a phishing attack. And I'm sure it's 100% of businesses, but 79% of people have recognised it, because we would have all, in our personal work life, would have received the phishing email. I'm confident of that. But just to explain phishing, for those of us that maybe aren't fully aware, the phishing is commonly done via email, but it can be done via SMS or a text message, and this is known as smishing, or it can be done via voice, so a telephone call, and this is known as phishing with a V. And a phishing email, though, that will present itself in your inbox. On the surface, it will appear to be a genuine email, like I said, like for the likes of Amazon or even someone you may know. but the email will be from an attacker and may contain malicious attachments or links, and it could be used to take some form of control over your computer or even direct you to another website, a spoof website that the attacker controls, where you're going to input your credentials and it would allow the attacker to steal that information from you. And another type of social engineering, again, worthy of mention today, is pretexting. And this is something I've seen on multiple occasions. And this is an attack where the social engineer will use up a made-up scenario to justify why they're contacting you. And once the contact's been made, the social engineer will then try to obtain information from you. And this is most commonly seen when the attacker poses as the IT help desk. We'll call you up to help you with a reported issue with your computer, gain your trust, and offer to remotely connect to your computer and resolve the problem for you quickly and easy. And if successful in gaining that connection, the attacker will then exploit the access they have to your machine. And finally, I want to highlight one more trick, and that is tailgating. Now, I'm confident that everybody would have experienced this, probably most legitimately, but tailgating is slightly different in that it's an attack that, if successful, would give the attacker physical access to a building. So in this attack, the social engineer would follow you as you opened and walked through a secure door, and this would give them access too. So the scenario that, again, I imagine most of us have seen is that you're going to use your key card, whatever access you means you use to open a door, to go into your office. And just as you walk through, someone will come running up behind you and you'll feel obliged to open the door or hold the door open for them. And it may be that you see someone approaching the door carrying a heavy box, and again, you feel obliged that you should hold that door open for them. And it's something that we're all going to do. It feels like, right now as I'm speaking about it, that it's something that, oh, I'd never do that, I'd be aware of that. But in that moment, our emotions and our reaction is to want to help people. So we hold that door open. And I know myself, when I challenge people, it can be uncomfortable, it can be awkward. But we have to challenge people. If we don't know them and we can't see any obvious ID, a lanyard, for example, then we have to challenge people and ask that question. Okay, so I promised I was going to speak about a case that I dealt with. And this is essentially social engineering in the real world. Now, in this example, the business owner had signed up to a dating website and he began chatting to someone via instant message on the site. And there was nothing unusual about this in the slightest. The conversation was going well, and the pair were discussing their likes and their dislikes. The conversation moved to star signs, and the business owner revealed their date and their place of birth. Again, this was all within the context of the conversation and appeared completely normal. And in fact, would have been if the person was real. The days continued to pass and the conversation was ongoing, and the pair were seemingly getting on really well. Mothers' maiden names were exchanged, places of birth, pets' names. And right now, again, this sounds so obvious, but it was all within the context of the conversation. The cybercriminal spent hours and hours talking to the victim, building trust and strengthening their relationship. In addition, the cybercriminal turned to the internet to find more information out about the victim, the business owner. And a Google search of the victim's name revealed the information of his business website. And scouring this website revealed further information. The victim's email address, mobile phone number were two quick and relatively easy pieces of information to get hold of. And I imagine it's the same for most businesses. We want to be contacted, we want to be available to our clients, our partners, or potential customers. So we have to provide this information. But this information was used to contact the business owner's mobile phone provider. The cyber criminal easily passed the security questions as they knew what they were going to be asked by the mobile phone company and had already got that information directly from the victim. Place of birth, mother's maiden name, pets' names, they're all common security questions. And the cyber criminal, once gaining access, once gaining the trust of the mobile phone provider and passing those security questions, was able to port the business owner's mobile phone number to their SIM card, meaning they now had control of the victim's phone. The business owner's phone was no longer receiving any text messages or calls, as they had been sent to the phone that the social engineer controlled. But it doesn't stop there. So using the business owner's personal details and the phone number, the social engineer proceeded to take control of the business owner's website and email address, ultimately taking out a loan in the business owner's name. Now, all this took place over the weekend, and the business owner had no idea what was going on. They still had access to their Wi-Fi, so their phone, in part, was functioning, certainly for what the business owner needed it to do. And it was only on Monday, when they realised they couldn't make any phone calls, that they realised they had a problem. So within 48 hours, the business owner had lost control of his business and owed the bank thousands of pounds. I mean, luckily, the business owner was able to recover his phone number and some of the money. However, it took weeks and weeks to rectify this. The time, stress, and effort the business owner put into getting everything back, essentially getting back to square one, shouldn't be overlooked. Now, I want to make this really clear. This was a one-person business, and the loan was just short of £10,000. And it can happen to anyone. The cyber criminal probably spent about 10 hours in total speaking with the victim, which is a significant amount of time. However, £10,000 is a pretty good return for 10 hours work. And we read in the news all the time about significant sums of money being paid in ransomware demands. And that's because it makes really good headlines. But lots of the cases that I investigated relate to £5,000 or less being stolen. And that doesn't include the impact or the cleanup work required post-attack. Cybercriminals are happy to make continuous lower level transactions. And if you think about it, it makes complete business sense. So I'd like to speak to you now about a survey that Cybersmart conducted in conjunction with Censorswipe. Now, this survey was conducted at the end of 2023, and we spoke with UK SMEs around the country, 1,000 UK leaders and decision makers. We want to understand how the cost of living crisis was impacting them. And we found that nearly half of UK SMEs believe they're at greater risk of cyber attacks since the cost of living crisis. 40% of employee salaries have stayed the same or even reduced. And over 1 in 5 small businesses are either worried about the survival of their business or expected to make a significant change in order to survive. So from what I'm telling you here, it's probably exactly what you expected. And it's the same for us. This is what we expected. So we decided to dig a little deeper. And we found that 73% of business leaders believe they're at greater risk of malicious or negligent insider threats. 17% believed employees would seek to harm them, the company's reputation. 20% believe employees would steal sensitive data. 22% believe employees would be more likely to make harmful mistakes, such as clicking on a link within a phishing email. But business leaders also believed, or would also engage in bribery, engage in cyber criminal activity, like hitting a rival company with a cyber attack, and would even commit fraud. Now, let me just take one moment to pause. These questions were answered in a moment of calm. They were asked to fill out a survey. And we have business leaders that say they will commit a criminal offence. And as I've highlighted here, each one of these is 10 years in prison. Now, these people aren't drug dealers, where part of the business is the risk of going to prison. These are leaders of UK SMEs. And at this point, they're prepared to potentially go to prison. Now, clearly, they need a better plan. And for me, part of that comes from the strategies that they can use to prevent or reduce the threat they face. And we've spoken a lot today about social engineering and the risk that it presents to our organizations. So the first thing I would say of real value to any business is employee training and awareness. Understanding what the threats are, recognizing what they could look like, and then understanding how best to deal with them will ensure that social engineers do not have an easy ride. Access controls and monitoring, again, it's vitally important that where we're giving privileges to people, whether that be an admin account or accessing certain information within the organization, like financial information, for example, it's important that we make sure that people who have these access are only given it when they need it, and they have it for as long as they need it. If they change roles, if they leave the company, the access should be removed. But we must also make sure that we monitor it. And I'll give you an example. Quite often, I have seen, both in my policing career and since moving to the private sector, admin accounts are issued to people. And they're issued for the right reason. However, they're not reviewed. So as time passes and people either move on to different jobs, or most commonly when they leave the organisation, these admin accounts still exist and they lay dormant until the moment they're used again by either a third-party criminal or by the person that initially had legitimate access to them. It's really important that we monitor these accounts. And the final strategy is implementing clear policies and procedures. Now, we've spoken about business continuity. It's so important that we have clear procedure for this, but also instant response procedures. It's vital that everybody understands how to report an incident and then what their roles and responsibilities are throughout that process. And clear policies. I mentioned access controls, joiners, movers, leavers policy, something that every organisation should have in place. I'd like to bring some final stats. 50% of SME leaders have increased investment in cybersecurity since the cost of living crisis, which is fantastic news, and it is much needed. But 13% of companies have no policies at all. And 76% of companies that recognise former employees as a threat have no clear offboarding policies or procedures. And I'd like to take just one moment to think. The two stats in red on the right-hand side of our screen. Do you have policies in place? And have you addressed your joiners, movers, leavers process? It's something that is so important. And what these stats are telling me is that people recognise that cybersecurity is a threat. It can harm their business. And they're willing to invest money in it. However, although they know what the problems or some of the problems may be, they're not sure how to implement controls that will either reduce or mitigate the risk. And that's why it's so important we work with people like Computer Geeks who have that knowledge, who have that understanding and experience and can demonstrate what we can do. So the final point I'd like to make today is that prevention is better than cure. Now, in 2019, the Serious Fraud Office advised that the average serious fraud investigation takes 4 years and 7 months to reach a conclusion. And I'll repeat that because it's staggering. 4 years and 7 months to reach a conclusion. So that's from start of investigation until point of decision at court. And 5 years on, I don't believe we're any further forward. I think, in fact, the wait for justice is getting longer. Cybercrime is becoming increasingly sophisticated, and with AI enhancing the volume of such attacks, can we truly expect our judicial system to cope? And fortunately, I think the current answer is no. Now, law enforcement will continue to be snowed under with mountains of data that needs to be reviewed before a charging decision can be made. And delays in the court system will increase further as legal points are raised around the use of AI by both defendants and the prosecutors. But what could be done? Well, with a public sector that is cutting cloth, there are no obvious or easy answers. And that is why I can see only two solutions that will stem the flow in the short term. The first, prevention, and the second is cyber insurance. And with that, I'll hand back over to Computer Geeks.
Thanks a lot, Adam. That was great, very insightful. So as the next step, I wanted to talk about Cyber Essentials and where that fits into all of this discussion. So just to outline, what is Cyber Essentials? Well, it's a UK government-backed scheme, and that's in conjunction with the NCSC, so the National Cyber Security Centre, and it focuses on 5 key controls. Now, those controls are around firewalls, so either on your devices or at the perimeter of your networks. Secure configuration, so how are devices and network appliances being set up when you get them out of the box? Is old software being removed, for example? User access control, and one of the common things here is what's known as the principle of least privilege. So only giving people access to those things that they need in order to carry out their job role, and having the starters, movers and leavers process shored up. Malware protection, so antivirus and also EDR, how are we making sure that threats are being appropriately detected and responded to on our endpoints? And security update management as well is another big one. So that's patching not just operating systems, but also third-party software across your devices. There's vulnerabilities coming out on almost a daily basis, which will get leveraged by malicious parties. So we need to make sure that we're on top of these updates constantly, basically. So those are the key controls of the Cyber Essentials standard. It's delivered on 2 levels, so that those levels are basic and plus. The main difference between the 2 is plus is further audited by an assessor to ensure correct implementation of the controls. So basic is still reviewed by an assessor and making sure that the answers to all the questions are correct, but plus is actively checked in that a subset of your devices will be assessed with someone connecting onto them and making sure the controls are in place. Now, it really helps protect organizations against common cyber attacks, including the one that I spoke about earlier. As I say, it wouldn't have been successful if Cyber Essentials was in place already and had been implemented. And lastly, and I think this is quite an eye-opening one, and goes back to what Adam was saying about cyber insurance and it being one of the things to protect private sector. Insurers see 80% fewer claims when Cyber Essentials is in place, and that's a stat from the NCSC. So moving on, just wanted to talk about how do we deliver Cyber Essentials at Computer Geeks. Now we use Cyber Essentials as a standard for what good looks like. So not just the purpose of a one-off assessment, but as a level to maintain throughout the course of the year, and endeavouring to keep our clients' security posture as good throughout the year as it was on the day that they achieved that certificate. So this is achieved, there we go, that's delivered as a service, through the deployment of the Active Protect agent to the endpoints, including mobile devices across our clients' infrastructures. And I've got some screenshots of the Active Protect agent on the right-hand side of the screen there. So you can see it's checking things like the operating system being up to date and patched, controls like autoplay being disabled, the fact there's a firewall, the right anti-malware in place, checks for encryption as well. And on the mobile devices, it's also checking the key controls. And that's feeding back information from all of the endpoints we deployed it to, back to a management portal that we control on behalf of our clients, and make sure that in the event a device does fall out of compliance, that we can remediate it actively. And that all contributes to that SMART score at the top, which will hopefully remain at or as close to 100% as possible throughout the course of the year. So the other thing that I touched on one of the controls was around the update management, basically, and the fact that there's vulnerabilities, really serious vulnerabilities cropping up constantly, and attackers will keep an eye on these. Of course they will. They will know that there's a certain operating system, a certain piece of software, could be as simple as Adobe Reader, that has a high attach base across various clients, that they would be able to compromise systems as a result. So we need to be on top of the vulnerability remediation on your behalf, and that's what we do as part of this service. We make sure that your applications and operating systems are actively updated. And then finally, there is 100K of cyber insurance, which is provided once you attain certification. So again, as Adam's saying, the two things are around having the appropriate security controls in place, and Cyber Essentials goes a long way in doing that. But secondly to that, having something as a bit of a fallback, and cyber insurance can be that. So, as a final thought, and sorry, you're going to have to bear with me on this one, but how can Swiss cheese be related to cybersecurity? That's the question. And the answer is the Swiss cheese model. So the Swiss cheese model is used in risk management. And what it does is demonstrate how holes or flaws in one layer of a system can be mitigated by a layer behind it. So I'll put an example, and you might have seen this on a government COVID slide at some point as well, a similar representation, because it can be used in lots of applications. COVID wise, it's social distancing plus vaccine plus XYZ. None of these is a single perfect solution, but added together, it provides a better protection. In the context of cybersecurity, no single policy or solution is going to solve all of the challenges. But through implementing multiple layers, one flaw is caught by another layer that doesn't have that same flaw in it. So what I'm trying to say here is the Cyber Essentials standard itself implements multiple layers within its 5 key controls, and therefore goes a long way in protecting against common threats. There's of course other Geek Cyber offerings, such as the advanced firewalls and the security awareness training, which again would add layers into your cyber security and improve your cyber security posture, budget permitting, of course. So I appreciate, sorry, just talked about cheese and everyone who's started to get a bit hungry for lunch. But as a next step, I just wanted to hand over to Nick, or for Nick to join me, and we're going to be going through a bit of a Q&A.
Thanks, Rob, and thanks to all of our clients for attending the webinar and our speakers. We're now going to host a Q&A session to answer your questions. So if you haven't done so yet, please jump into the Q&A section, pop a question in there, and we will start answering some of the ones that have already been submitted. So the format I'm going to take is to pose these questions to the panel being Ryan, Adam, and Rob. First question: do SMEs really get hacked? Isn't it just the McDonald's, Greggs, and NHSs of this world?
Yep. So yeah, thanks for that question. Certainly, in terms of the example that I ran through at the start of the webinar, that's a real world example, a company of around 40 or so employees, and yeah, absolutely, they were hacked. They're targeted, and there was real life implications as a result of it. We hear many stories from not necessarily our clients, but people that they know that have been compromised, and we get stuff through our EDR platform as well, which just gives us an idea of attempts which might be being made. So 100% SMEs are a big target, and I'm sure Adam's got some insight on this one as well.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And as I sort of referenced earlier on, we hear all the time about big businesses being hacked, and they're going to have multiple attempts of cyber attacks on them per day, and it's all going to be for big money. But we don't hear about the smaller attacks, because they're not as newsworthy. People probably wouldn't pick up a paper to read local business attacked and lost £3,000, because that headline doesn't make big news. But that local business probably has been attacked, well, definitely has been attacked, and if they've fallen victim, they may have paid £3,000 for a ransom demand or whatever it may be, but there's also the costs that sit behind it, and then the reputational damage that goes behind it. So 100%, everyone is being attacked, every business and individually as well. We are constantly under attack, and it's something that we must all start to realise and recognise now.
Thanks, Adam and Rob. Next question is: I have a limited budget for cybersecurity. What should I focus on?
Yeah, no, that's a good one, and I can completely understand that in terms of there's lots of shiny and useful things that can be implemented in the cybersecurity space, and it would be lovely if we could all just have all of them. Of course we would if we could, if we had an unlimited budget. It's just not practical, it's not real world. I do think Cyber Essentials is one of those that I would absolutely focus on, because it's just such a good base level to get to know that you've got this. You're certified up to a standard which is endorsed by the NCSC and the UK government, and you've got multiple layers in place to protect against a lot of common threats. So, if you could only pick, let's say you could pick one thing, that would be it from my perspective, getting up to that level and getting Cyber Essentials certified. Now, if I could pick two things, being a bit cheeky here, extending the budget out a little bit, I would add security awareness training into it as well. And the reason for that, a couple of things. I mean, Adam mentioned the sheer volume of social engineering type attacks, which could be mitigated by proper security awareness training. And likewise, another stat that we've seen is 80% of cyber attacks are as a result of some kind of human error. So if you can reduce that as much as possible, and I think security awareness training is a low barrier to do that.
Thanks, Rob.
What are your thoughts on that one, Adam? I'm sure you've seen a lot in your time in the police and also at CyberSmart in terms of instances where security awareness training and the Cyber Essentials standard would have or could have really improved things.
Yeah, definitely. And I'd agree with what you just said, Rob. I think one of the things that I've seen is that people recognise, and then as I talked about in the presentation there, people recognise that cybersecurity at risk. They're willing to spend money on it, and they're willing to put resources into it. They don't necessarily know the best way, the most efficient way to do it. And for me, I always recommend Cyber Essentials as the first step, because it is the basics. It really is the basics. And it's the first step in your journey. And one of the things that the National Cybersecurity Centre highlighted in their annual review last year was that just over 60% of people that do Cyber Essentials go through that process, they actually learn from it. And for me, that is the big factor. And I'm not talking about learning about cybersecurity. I'm talking about learning how to implement cybersecurity controls and measures across your business. And once you start getting that understanding, then you can start having a conversation, informed conversation with everyone else in the business to make sure that you are making your business safe, or as safe as it can be.
Great stuff. Thanks for that. Adam, this is probably another one for yourself. A question here. Aside from a policy letting employees, I'll start again. Aside from a policy to allow employees to use ChatGPT, but not to upload any sensitive data, what safety and ethical policies would you put in place to ensure a successful AI implementation?
Yeah, certainly. So yeah, the key one obviously you mentioned there is having the policy in place, but we need to identify what AI models are allowed to be used. So everyone's heard of ChatGPT, but there are so many out there now, whether that be ChatGPT, Gemini, the common ones, or the less known ones, or whether it's just creating images. We need to be clear what is allowed to be used, who can use it, and then we need to monitor that usage. So if we're seeing other AI engines being used by employees, then we need to speak to them. That needs to be part of the policy. But also how we use that information. So we've discussed the information that we're putting in to these engines, but also what about the information that comes out? We need to recognize that it's not always factual. Now, we've seen cases, I believe in America, where a lawyer presented evidence to a court that an AI had generated, and it was actually made up. It wasn't true. So we need to make sure that what's coming out is true, but also how we use it. I've seen myself, and I'm sure others have, you receive an email or you read a post on social media, and it is quite clearly generated by AI. AI has that feel about it. If you receive an email from someone that is AI generated, how does that make you feel? Probably not very valued. So it's really important that we understand how to use the information we get out of AI and that we fact check it as well. And those are the things I probably look at, Nick, in terms of being important for a policy at this stage.
I think, yeah, I completely agree. I think one thing to add quickly from my point is a lot of platforms and systems are starting to integrate with AI, so it can sometimes be difficult to actually know or see when your data might be being passed to an AI through like an API call or something like that. So you might have, for example, a quoting system or something like that, which has been made more intelligent by the fact that it speaks to an AI. But do you want it to do that? Do you want the data to be going to the AI and is training the large language model? So yeah, I think robust policy is probably what's needed there.
Great stuff. Thank you, everyone, for all of your questions. And I think we're going to pass back to Mark to close off our session. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks very much for everyone for attending today. I know there's been a lot of information to take on there, all about Cyber Essentials as a service from us here at Computer Geeks and our partners at CyberSmart. And for those who are watching on video, thank you for watching as well. And yeah, hopefully you've learned a lot from today. And thank you to our guest speakers again, Adam and Ryan. But many thanks, and yeah, see you all soon. Cheers.